Hey everyone, welcome to We Talk Data. So this is Al, I'm your host. As you know, I'm a senior manager in product technology with Amazon, and I have Ravi with me.
Hi everyone, this is Ravi. I work as a software engineer in NetApp, and I'm an AI enthusiast. I love connecting the dots between AI and software engineering.
Cool. So today, we have some interesting topics lined up. Let's talk about. Okay, so I have a very good topic with me. So there was a survey that was conducted recently about a developer ecosystem for 2020. So that's what I'm going to talk about. This was an interesting survey. As you see, this was taken across a variety of developers, in 2020, and so this actually explains about what are the latest trends around tools, technologies, programming languages, and other exciting facets in the development world. So I was a product manager for programming language in the past. So I always have a passion towards what programming languages are used and how it is used, because I was doing compiler design back in the day. So it was quite interesting for me to see all those stuff. So I would like to share that with you. So the key takeaways, right? So probably I should that's like a surprise thing. So I'll do it at the last. So the programming languages. So the survey actually talk about what are the most used programming languages in the last 12 months. So you can guess which one stands at the first. It's pretty tough. So JavaScript stands first. So 70% of the developers reported that JavaScript is used higher. And the next one is HTML, and then followed by SQL, and then followed by Python and Java. And then there are shell scripting languages, TypeScript, C++, PHP, C, and everything. So it was quite interesting. C++ was 27%. JavaScript was 70%, so which is huge. And as we see, I think most of these things are developed towards web. So what do you think, Ravi?
I think there are lots of web developers.
Yeah.
Day by day.
Yeah, pretty much all full stack developers use JavaScript. Web developers use JavaScript, and that's why I think it turned out to be like 70%. Use JavaScript, and it is highly used programming language currently. That's awesome. So, and I was pretty interested in R, Scala, and actually it turned out R was used only 5% of the times, and Scala was only 5%. So, which is very, very, very interesting. And Python actually came out to be 55%, which is like huge.
Yeah,
and Java is pretty close.
Yes, Python was a recent one compared to the other which was there in the market, especially it became famous due to this machine learning stuffs, and gradually it came into the picture.
Yeah, I think it's because of the data science, right? So Python is on the top, but SQL is still as a third one. So SQL is like 56%, which is amazing.
Yeah,
1% higher than Python. Okay, let's go to the next question on the survey, right? So which is like, we asked the developers about like how do they adopt or what language they want to adopt or migrate in the next 12 months, in the upcoming 12 months, right? Interestingly, JavaScript turned out to be again the highest one with 41% JavaScript. Most of the developers were saying like 41% they want to go to JavaScript, and then some of them told us like Java turned out to be like 43%. No, actually JavaScript was 41%, but looks like so basically Java and SQL actually overtook JavaScript. And then there are pretty good interest in Go, Kotlin, TypeScript as well, so which is pretty interesting. So basically there was also a question about what are the primary programming languages. So as you see that for the past 12 months JavaScript was the highest used. So the primary programming language is again JavaScript, and Java stands second, which about like 37% of developers told it's Java, and 39% said JavaScript. So, and Python is the third. So obviously, right? So, so there was an interesting question about like on which operating system they have the development environment, which I was really interested to. because there has always been a competition between like Mac and Windows and Linux, right? So Linux is also a
Yeah.
big. So it turned out to be 60% of the developers across the world use Windows, right? So they choose Windows as the primary development environment. And then the second one is Linux, 50%. Mac stands the third with 44%. And all other development environments are just 1%. So Windows is the primary player, and Linux is pretty close second, and Mac OS is like 44% with the third place, right? So and then there was a question about like which platforms they develop. So that was an interesting question, right? Like, are they all like doing backend development, front end development? That was the main thing we want to understand. So it turned out 69% of developers were web developers, right? So everyone has a web component to their applications, and pretty much they are developing web. So web actually, we want to dive a little bit more deeper into that data. So want to see like whether what type of web development they are doing, right? So like web backend development or web front end development, right? There are different programming languages and stacks that you can use for it. So backend turned out to be much more higher development resources are spending time on web backend development. And then in the web front end, it was about 57%. So web stands highest. And then the third is the desktop based development. So I was hoping for mobile development. So I thought like mobile development will be the top one, right? So, but it was not. Yeah, it was not. So basically, mobile development was the fourth, with 32% developers there, and IoT
It's
and everything was like, I think IoT development, server development were very low. It was close to 28% for server, and IoT was like 9%, which was
okay.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
very interesting. Yes.
yeah, this was a really interesting survey, and this is very authentic because the ecosystem was surveyed by JetBrains and team. So they were doing an intensive survey on the space, so that they have a very variety of tool sets related to this. So they were trying to develop their own resources, based off of the survey. So this was a very good one. And what is other interesting stuff I saw there? Let me see. So yeah, so actually there was a what type of software they develop, right? So that was another interesting thing. Again, you may know the answer. It's an obvious answer. Websites are the top level softwares that they were developing, and there are some utilities. And the third important segment of development was database. So database and
Okay.
data storage was the third highest development software. Like, so still people are like, developing a lot of different database systems, data storage systems. So that's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
So
surprising me because I was never expecting database will be topping the list. We will be working on database technologies, developing database technologies.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, it was
that's
like I
more
was thinking
interesting.
websites was obvious. So it was 54% of the people were working on, websites. That's good. And then we usually work on like a lot of small apps, to automate small tasks in the systems and in the enterprise companies and stuff, right? So that is like 36%. And the
Mhm.
30% of developers were totally working on a database and data storage, which was a quite
Okay.
interesting data point to note. And then there are libraries, framework developing developers, like 23%. And there was a BI, data science, machine learning. That was quite an interesting data point I was looking for, which is like just 19%. So that means only 19% of the developers are concentrated towards data science and machine learning.
Okay.
So that's an interesting thing. I think this will change over the period of time, I think, because these fields are actually taking over, right? So you may see
Okay. Yeah.
a difference there. And 10% is in games, game development, and hardware was 5% only. Blockchain was just 3%. And and I was actually looking for another segment, yeah, which is an interesting segment: augmented reality and like virtual reality. So VR, AR, that was only 3%. So which is different. Like I was thinking a lot of people were working on that zone. Nice.
Mhm.
So yeah, this was really cool. And then there was an interesting thing about you know so where they want to deploy their projects, right? So that was an interesting as well. Like they use Windows for their development environment. I just want to understand like where they deploy the platform, right? So which platform they target for their projects. So that again turned out to be Windows is the top. with 84%. So that was whopping 84% were targeted towards Windows environment. And 60% was Linux, and again 39% was Mac OS. So the Mac OS actually lays, I think, in development environment, Mac OS stands, closer to these other two operating systems. But from the target perspective or deployment perspective, Mac OS is the last. I would say like 39% is very less compared to 84% that Windows holds. So which is awesome. So yeah, that was very different. And there were some interesting questions as well. Like, whether they, do you contribute to open source project? So, that's a very good question. Most of them said no. So it's like that 44% said like, okay, no, I'm not contributing to open source projects. But they like to do it. They said, I would like to do it, but, I'm not doing it right now. So yeah, so not many developers are concentrating on the open source project. But I think, obviously we should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are many initiatives by Google, like Google Summer of Code, and many other organizations are pitching in to do this open source contributions. So just quite interesting. And talking about Windows, I'd say that when I'm a fan of Linux, and I love Linux. When I started with Linux, and we could know each and every internals of the operating system. I feel my soul is getting fed by cool things. But once I started working on, Microsoft, lots of things are very abstract. I cannot able to see internally what is happening. And but later on, I came to know that the manageability when we compare both operating system, Microsoft rules out, like it was super awesome for managing the stuffs in a very easy way. So
yeah, and also the audience, most of your audience that you talk to, right? Most of us, we develop for business and enterprises, and like high scale, right? So other users are mostly in Microsoft, so Windows based, right? So that is why we target towards our own audience. So that's why a lot of people are deploying their projects in Microsoft. So yeah. So from development perspective, I was thinking like Linux will be the topper and the Mac OS will be following next, but it was different because because if you test it out, not all the applications are native applications, right? So still there is a lot of dependency on the Windows system.
Yeah,
and Microsoft is doing well recently too. So they developed a lot of different things, and now they are allowing developers to access the Windows API. Internally, you can go like previously it was just like there was a layer in between. Now they are allowing you to go and talk to the Kerberos level stuff. But so let's see how it's pan out. Awesome. So, and then there was a question about mobile operating systems, for all mobile developers out there. So Android and iOS, obviously top the list, 45%, and Android is the topper with 41%, because Android is adopted across the world. So Android is a topper with 41%, and iOS was like 11%. In most of the, in some countries, iOS actually tops, but as an overall, Android is the topper, which like 42%. And you know what, the React Native was the most popular framework. You can say it's a library, right? So it's not a so React Native was a highly used framework in the mobile development area. So that was awesome.
That's another interesting statement.
I was thinking something else, because React Native was kind of new, right? It's not an old framework, but so React Native is a famous one in mobile development, and the framework, a lot of developers, 42% of the developers use React Native, hands down. And the second was Flutter. Flutter was also a famous one, so it's like 39% of the developers use Flutter. And third was Cordova. Cordova was 18%. So actually Cordova and Ionic, they actually had a tie, both 18%. 18% of the developers said like Cordova, and 18% said Ionic. So it was quite interesting.
Okay.
It was quite interesting. It is a very detailed survey. So I was just trying to get some interesting points for our audience. So that's why it's like, I'm just like talking about only very certain things. But it was very interesting survey, and it's like it had like covered a lot of different points. And yeah, it is quite interesting. So yeah, let me go faster. So I think I'm consuming too much time here. So let's talk about big data. So that was another interesting topic, right? So which big data analytic platform does our developers use, right? So 67% said no specific platform at all, right? So they don't use any, they are not rely on any specific big data analytics platform. So they are mostly are in-house tools and in-house platforms, right? So they are just developing themselves. So 18% said Google Colab and 18% said Google AI. Google AI is the platform for big data analytics, but 67% said in a no specific platform. And when it comes to big data tools, Spark is the first, hands down, right? So 24% of the developers said like Spark, and 18% said Kafka, and 14% said Hadoop, right? So Hadoop is getting older, right? So not all the use cases are getting fit into Hadoop and MapReduce. So I think people are moving towards Spark, but 24% Spark, 18% Kafka, and 14% Hadoop, which is awesome. And then which is followed by Hive and Flink, and then there's Pig, Beam, Taze. So awesome. So Spark is the number one in this. And most of them are said like, okay, so we also ask this question, right? So where their data is hosted, right? So is it in public cloud? Is it in private cloud? Where it is, right? So most of them said like internal servers. So people are using a lot of servers. So not everyone is like on the cloud. So that means it's a lucrative market. And there are private clouds for 24%. Developers said like we are using local, local systems, and then 34% said internal servers, and then 23% AWS. AWS tops this, and actually the next point is very interesting. So 10% of the developers said Google Cloud, and only 5% said Azure, which is very different. I thought like Azure is above, but somehow it's like AWS on the top and Google Cloud and then Azure. And then 4% are using other clouds as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting space. I think this data points will change every year for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to know that are these data points specific to the compute or it's specific to the storage cloud? In talking in terms of cloud.
Okay, this is storage. So data hosting. So
Okay.
not exactly about the compute. So I think
Okay.
this is mostly the storage. Yeah. So, and because we are talking about big data analytics and things like that, right? So yeah, so it may include some big data tools, right? Some cloud-based big data tools, but yeah.
Okay.
So that's an interesting point. So cool. So then one last thing was the statistical package, like what they use, what kind of tools they use for visualizing the data, right? So because we talk data, so we want to talk about data, right? So
Yeah.
surprisingly, 50% of the developers said they use Microsoft Excel. That's awesome. Still, we're using Microsoft Excel and the spreadsheets, and that is like 50% they use it for visualizing the data. 18% said Tableau, 5% said SAS, and then there are other tools like SPS, Statistica, and other tools. But yeah, 50% Microsoft Excel. That's something. Yeah, cool. So yeah, so that was a thing, and then I have a couple of other things as well, like the key takeaways, right? So what are the key takeaways out of this total survey? So Java is the most popular primary programming language, and JavaScript is the most used overall programming language, and websites are the most common type of application developers they work on. Websites are the main domain that they work on, and Go, Kotlin, Python are like top three languages that developers are planning to adopt in the future or migrate, right? Go, Kotlin, and Python. And Python has actually overtaken Java in the list of languages used in the last 12 months. So it's a clear indicator that Python is, going, the curve is actually going up, right? And it is the most studied language. So Python tools and Python, books are the most studied books in this ecosystem. And in the last 12 months, 30% of the respondents have started and continue to learn Python. So that means it's like every year more people are studying Python. So which is a very clear indicator as like Python is going up. So those are the key takeaways. And any questions, Ravi?
Uh, I have a question. Things which comes to my mind is like, what do you think about the mobile development? I was imagining that okay, web is there for more than a decade, so now it's a time for mobile application to come up and rise in up. But by seeing the survey, I was quite surprised that still JavaScript is ruling the world. Like you have any points or suggestion on it, like any futuristic ideas, like how it will be?
Yeah. I was thinking the same when I was initially, going through the survey, right? So I was thinking, okay, mobile development actually overtook everything, but it is not true because our data space is actually growing bigger and bigger, right? And mobile can compute only very less, very less, right? So now, yeah, there is a clear definition between. So you can, there are still mobile developers, but in order to display something on the mobile, you have to do a lot of compute on the back end. So that is why there are more backend developers rather than the mobile developers. So mobile actually still is a very good digital platform where we push a lot of stuff. For example, like there are very good apps, like LinkedIn, Facebook, everything. But most of these architectures are backend because the amount of data that they consume and process is too much, right? So that is why very less developers are actually mobile development is a lot of people are doing it, but very less developers. More developers are on the back end doing Kafka, Spark, all sorts of data storage technologies, database technologies, right? They are trying to minimize and compress, aggregate the data, and present only very nice, set to the mobile system. So yeah, mobile is growing, but most of our audience are going towards mobile, right? So like most of our users are using mobile a lot. But again, from developers' perspective, I think mostly 80% of the developers are in the backend. That's yeah, that's something interesting. Yeah, I think that will grow like that because recently we came from gigabytes to terabytes to now petabytes, and we are processing like too much data now, and obviously someone has to manage it, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, cool. I think yeah. So let's wrap it up. So we'll call it off. I think we are over time. So we were planning for like 10 minutes, and then it's like now it's more than that. So let's wrap it up. And thanks for listening. Talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.